يا علي يا علي علي علي.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله الذي لا يبلغ مدحته القائلون ولا يحصي نعماءه العادون ولا يؤدي حقه المجتهدون، الذي لا يدركه بعد الحمم ولا يناله غوص الفطن، ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين، حبيب قلوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا والشفيع ذنوبنا، سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين، لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين، صاحب العصر والزمان، خليفة الرحمن، إمام الإنس والجان، ولعن الله أعداءهم أجمعين إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد، فقد قال الله وقوله الحق. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ولقد ذرأنا لجهنم كثيرا من الجن والإنس لهم قلوب لا يفقهون بها ولهم أعين لا يبصرون بها ولهم أذان لا يسمعون بها، أولئك كالأنعام بل هم أضل، أولئك هم الغافلون. صلاة على محمد وآل محمد. Living in an era of awareness and insight has been our topic. Tonight is lecture number 10 and is the final lecture in our series. I will inshallah save the thank yous for later when we have more of a public, inshallah. Near the end of the lecture, there's also a few things I want to address to the community as well. And I'll save that inshallah for a little bit later on. Our attempt, for those of you who have since day number 1 with a lot of himmat been with me, is that we've been trying to invoke the discussion on basirat, on insight, to make us aware, to make us insightful, to make us understand the true essence of the time that we're living in. You see, a mu'min is somebody who's zaman shanas, who understands the era in which he lives, who's not somebody who turns a blind eye, or not somebody who's heedless, or not somebody who is completely unaware of what's happening around him. A mu'min, a believer, the deen of Islam is a deen of awakening, is a deen of the batin, of the internal. These eyes, these arms, these legs are all tools used by the soul to get what it wants from this world. And a fool would be an individual who gives all of its importance to the tool and not to the center that uses that tool for its benefit. We've been trying to spark and jolt all of us in these now 10 days, tomorrow being the day of Ashura. Because the reality is that right now, the situation in the Ummah is very delicate, it's very sensitive. We are at a very crucial time, and every year as we get closer and closer to the arrival of our Imam, these 10 days will have its own significance. And it is a shame that we have such beautiful gatherings. There's plenty of money being spent. All of you are putting forth your efforts to come out of your homes every center, every masjid, every Husseiniya, every Imam Barga is completely full. And to not be able to create some revolution or some at least mental revolution inside of us is a shame. And so that has been the attempt now for the past 10 nights, is to perhaps look at these 10 days and look at our own selves through a different lens, a different set of eyes. And those eyes being, of course, the eyes of the internal kingdom. The reality is that if you look at the world of irfan and the world of mysticism, Shaykh Mutahari rahmatullah alayh, in his very opening discussion on irfan, he talks about 7 steps of irfan. He says the very first step is something called irada. Irada, for lack of a better translation, is this will you have to do something. And he describes life as one full circle broken up into 2 different halves. And he says that I want you to imagine on a piece of paper there's a circle being drawn. It's broken up into 2 different moon halves. He says the very top of the circle is where we are created, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has gifted us with creation. He says our journey from there goes down the left side of the first crescent on the left-hand side. He calls that nuzul, or dissension, from where we were created, and we live our life as biological Muslims. We pray salat because our father tells us to. We believe in Islam because we are in an Islamic household. We are Shia because our parents are Shia. We come to the Majlis because we're dragged here. This sense of Islamic identity is all biological. If we were not born in a Shia household, perhaps we would not have that identity. And he calls that nuzul. It's simple dissension. And then he says that something happens to us. A spark happens to us. A moment of awakening happens to us. He describes that in the fitrat of the insan, in the innate nature of the insan, in the innate disposition of the human being, we go through a series of questions, and if you haven't already gone through that, you will one day, to my younger youth. And he says that every human being asks itself 3 very important questions. Origin, purpose, and destination. Mabda, hadaf, and ma'ad, and maqsad. Where did I come from? What am I doing here? And where am I going? Eventually, in some form or another, all of us will have that conversation with ourselves. Where now we'll break the chains of being biological Muslims and start to actually dig deep inside of us to find out where is this all coming from. And not just Muslims, every single human being with a working, functioning aql and intellect will go through this self-diagnosis, this self-discussion of origin, purpose, destination. Why we call the deen of Islam a deen of the fitrat? It's because it asks you to look inside yourself for the deen. It doesn't ask you to go outside of yourself for the deen. Because the reality is that while every single one of those 3 questions are there, Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. You have been a fantastic community for 10 days. I need your attention now. I don't have everyone's attention right now. This is a very crucial discussion tonight. All the 9 lectures that we've had before that are all building to tonight's. There are things that will be discussed tonight that I've been building for 9 nights. So please stay with me, inshallah. Our sisters too, mashallah, tonight, it's a miracle, they're quiet. It's a mu'jiza of Imam Hussein, no doubt. Please, if you guys can just bear with me and stay with me, inshallah, we'll try to get through this together. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So let's keep in mind, we have nuzul now. He says we start off and we live our life. We live our life, we live our life. and then the moment happens. And that moment could come at the age of 15, that moment could come at the age of 65. It could come later on in life. And that spark is triggered, or could be triggered, by a series of events. Sometimes these 10 days causes that spark to happen. Sometimes the last 10 nights of Mahr Ramadan causes that spark to happen. Sometimes a tragedy causes that spark to happen. Sometimes one trip to Karbala causes that spark to happen. When our sixth Imam says, may Allah have mercy on those cheeks that rub themselves against the body of Abu Abdullah, that's a journey. Of course, then there are those individuals who, God forbid, they go to Hajj and they come back worse than they went before they went. Or they leave their entire Iman in Mecca and come back with lesser Iman than they left. No idea how that happens. Sometimes it does. And that spark happens. And that spark triggers what? It triggers some questions. Where did I come from? What am I doing here? Where am I going? I keep repeating this over and over again. Islam, the beauty of Islam, and this is really what I want to reintroduce the deen to all of my youth. We call it the deen of the fitrat. And if I had more time, a couple of more nights, we'll discuss what the fitrat is. The innate nature of the human being is called the fitrat. I'll give you an example. And let me also say it from now to Ghulam Abbas Bhai already and the executives. I might go a little bit over tonight than an hour. I just have some ahem bata to say to all of you. If you can, it's Shab Ashur. We're here all night. There's no rush. Tomorrow is a holiday. I'm comfortable. You also get comfortable. And let's have a discussion. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Let me also reveal to you how old I am. When we used to buy a computer back in the day, we used to buy a computer, we would turn it on and it would have a blinking cursor. And the computer company would give you a disk, a floppy disk, which you guys have no idea what that is. It's a big guy that sometimes is used as coasters now in people's homes. You put that inside of your tower and you actually are able to choose your operating system for you. Either it's DOS based, so you are IT, or it's Windows based. Okay? Windows 3.11 was the first operating system that came way before Windows 95 did. This is not how old I am, okay? And you would choose and load your own operating system. Everything from the date and the time to the weather to everything would be up to you. Today, if you go to, let's say, a computer store, you buy a tablet, you buy a laptop, and you open the tablet or you turn it on, there's already a pre-loaded operating system on there for you. So for example, if you buy, let's say, an iPad, there's already iOS on it. If you buy, let's say, a Samsung, there's already Android on there. If you buy, let's say, a desktop computer, there's a Windows operating system on there already. If you turn on the tower and there's a blinking cursor like I used to have back then, you'd return the computer and say that something is wrong with this thing. There's already a preloaded operating system on the computer for you. Please follow my example. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created us also with a preloading operating system as well. And that operating system is called Tawheed. Okay? We are built and designed to believe in one unique Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We quantify Him, we qualify Him. He is both Wahid and Ahad. He is both one in number and unique in nature. And our fitrat is what is called the operating system. Now, every so often, those of you who have smartphones, the operating system sends out updates. And they force you to update that operating system. You do your best to avoid it because you know that every update will eventually crash my system, ruin my Wi-Fi, something bad will happen. But unless and until you update your operating system on your iPhone or on your Android, let's say, the apps might not start to work. So the company sends you updates. Allah in His system doesn't send you updates. He expects you to update your own operating system yourself. When's the last time we updated our operating system of Tawheed? Many of us, my respective elders, we've been having the same vision of the deen since we were 15, 16 in the streets of Karachi or Lahore. Many of my older youth who are now in your late 20s, early 30s, you've been having the same vision of the deen since you were 15. Even if you're 20, 21 right now, the past 6 years since you were baligh, you're the exact same vision of the deen as you've had since day number one. That's not what an operating system does. The operating system needs to be constantly updated and refreshed. Why? Otherwise your apps won't work. Otherwise the halat, the zamana around you changes and you remain the same. Trying to use Windows 95 in this day and age won't work. But that's what we do. Our Tawheed is Windows 95. The zamana has moved on to something else. And there's a disconnect. What we need to do is update our Tawheed every so often. How do we do that? By using the path of insight and basirat and opening our eyes. And understanding that Allah is not just this idea of saying La ilaha illallah. Allah and Tawheed is a lifestyle. When is the last time we, and I'm included in that, updated our operating system of Tawheed? These 10 nights have all been about this idea of this operating system that needs refreshing, updating, all that stuff. So Shaykh Matari, let's go back to this discussion. The spark happens, and Islam in its infinite wisdom says that the usul of the deen, the principles of religion are 3, and the usul of iman, the principles of faith, are 2. We combine them, we have that very, very famous list of 5 of them. From Tawheed, Adalat, Nubuwat, Imamat, Ma'ad, or Qiyamat. Okay? 2 of them define what a mu'min are, 3 define what a Muslim are. You're not considered to be a Muslim, like I said before already, unless you have Allah, Tawheed, Nubuwat, and Qiyamat. You are outside the deen of Islam. There are people in today's day and age who claim to be Muslims, and people have asked, is this certain sect a Muslim? If they believe in a prophet beyond the holy prophet, then you are ikhraj from the deen. You are taken out of the deen. You are no longer considered a Muslim. If you are somebody who does not believe in the walayat or imamat or the adalat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you can't be considered to be a mu'min. So all these verses that say, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, don't apply to you. They don't. So what does Islam do? Look at the beauty of Islam, guys. Those 3 questions, origin, purpose, destination, are answered by the roots of the religion. Origin is Tawheed, purpose is Nubuwat, destination is Qiyamat. The deen of Islam is a deen of the fitrat. No one's asking you to go here, go here, go here. Look inside yourself and you'll find the deen inside of you. Once you find the deen inside of you, develop it, nurture it, grow it, support it, make it strong. Don't accept it to be anything less than your salvation. Because once that spark happens, then the second half of the journey continues. And that journey is called Sa'ud. Sa'ud means to return back to your original spot. So Nuzul, spark happens, Sa'ud, you go back to Allah. Not physically, you go back to Allah metaphysically. Look, the ayat that he uses is Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. We think it's for the dead. It's not. Whenever someone dies, we recite that ayat. On their qabr, we have that ayat. When we're announcing someone's death, we have it above. And no doubt, it's a verse used for the dead. It's not just for the dead. In fact, if you ask me, it's for us living our life in this world. Every single day, we are from Allah, we go back to Allah. There are moments where we're on the path, we deviate. There are moments where we become biological, spark happens, we become realistic Muslims. There are moments where we are from Allah and we go back to Allah. You can't go back to Allah وَإِلَيْهِ رَاجِعُونَ unless that spark happens. If you've been inspired in these 10 days of Muharram, that spark now needs for you to nurture it. A spark. Have you seen a smoker trying to light a cigarette? It sparks, it sparks, it sparks. Nothing happens until it catches a flame. And then he lights a cigarette. It's a bad example, I know. Inshallah, you'll bear with me. That spark is nothing unless you use that spark to lighten up your soul. Sparks come and sparks go. Sometimes our youth go through several sparks a year. We're sitting there in the masjid, 10 days of Muharram. We're just on fire inside. We're on a whole different tip altogether, a whole different level altogether. And come Wednesday morning, 11th of Muharram, it's like someone took a pin and popped our balloon. It's gone. Don't let that happen. Tonight is a night of a spark. Tonight is Shabi Ashur. We don't want to rest. We don't want to do anything but the musibat of Aba Abdullah. Tomorrow is the day of Ashura. Like I said before, in the very first majlis we had, now 10 nights ago, this nation of ours, the Shia nation, is a very ajib nation. We spend 364 days a year, all in preparation for tomorrow. We wait for tomorrow. It's a day of grief. It's a day where you don't say salam to each other. It's a day where you look disheveled. It's a day where the lights go out. It's a day where you reoccur and you retell these gory details of a man being slaughtered in northern Iraq. And yet our kids, our women, our men, they come running towards these types of gatherings. Almost as if you don't feel complete unless you sit in a gathering like this. It's very ajib. A normal human being would run from these types of gatherings. We prepare ourselves for these types of gatherings. So the question I have for myself, and then maybe for all of you, is what has been our spark in the past 10 nights? What has been that spark that will awaken us and take us from biological Muslims to realistic Muslims? Will take and break the mold of the fact that I am this way because of my father. The reality is that in your grave, no one's going to ask you what your father's name is. No one's going to ask you that. What they'll ask you is, what did you do? The first point I want to make tonight is once you identified your spark, nurture it, grow it, don't let it fade away. Allow it now to become a source of light for you for hidayat. We are living in a world of dhulimat, of darkness. We are living in the world of jahiliyyah. We are living in a world of complete and absolute dhulm, oppression and injustice. And the world is searching for some answer. If we can be that source of light, not only for us, but for others, that's amazing. Imam Jafri Sadiq, alayhi salatu wassalam, he talks about the fact that there are 4 types of qulub, 4 types of hearts. One of them is called Al-Qalb Azhar. Al-Qalb Azhar is the one that not only illuminates its own soul, but illuminates the soul of others as well. And that's the qalb of a mu'min. That's why we say that, look, you have the flashlight, it's pitch black outside, there are people who don't have flashlights. You don't say, you're in the dark. You say, look, let me light the flashlight, come with me. Whatever I can see, I want to show you as well. Otherwise, we won't get anywhere. This is what is crucial in this day and age. For us to develop that heart inside of us, to be able to become a qalb azhar. Not, God forbid, a heart that khatama ala qulubihim, the Quran says, where it's sealed. Speech upon speech, majlis upon majlis, 50 years of majalis. And nothing enters our hearts. Nothing enters our heart. The system of the ilm that we have today, I think about other sects of Islam, and their source of ilm from the member in the masajid, I don't know where it's from. Perhaps a Friday prayer. Perhaps a gathering during the Prophet's birthday. Perhaps a few lectures in the month of Ramadan. We, the Shia communities across the world, easily across a 12-month calendar, have 150 programs in our centers. If we celebrate and commemorate all the waladats and all the shahadats, we have easily 150 hours of that a year. And in every single one of those programs, there's some dhikr of the Ahlul Bayt in there. That's why our ulama said, look, if only our ummah learned to act on what they knew, we'd be somewhere else right now. Just act on what you know. No one's asking you to rediscover ilm or look at different sciences. You've heard some ilm from the member, act on it. Like I said, information from the brain to the heart to amal. That is what true ilm is. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Because the reality is that this entire discussion of insight and awareness, its sole purpose is to prepare us for the arrival of our Imam. Nothing else matters right now. Everything is about the Imam right now. Even our tears for Imam Hussein is a preparation for our Imam who's in Ghaibat right now. Many of our individuals, our youth, are confused. They ask us about this idea of the Ghaibat of the Imam. How is it possible Allah depends on us for something as crucial as the establishment of Allah's governments? It's going to happen. It's a promise of the Quran. إِنَّ الْأَرْضَ يُرِيثُهَا عِبَادِيَ الصَّالِحُونَ. This land, this earth will for sure be inherited by the righteous servants of Allah. Majority of the Mufassirin in the Ahl Sunnah world, in the Shia world, have said that this points to the hukumat of Imam Zamana, alayhi salatu wassalam. Let's understand first of all the philosophy of the ghaibat, just very quickly. And again, we'll use examples like we love to do to get the point across. I don't know about in this country, I doubt it, but in our country, hockey is a big sport. Not field hockey, like ice hockey. And I used to play hockey growing up in the streets of Toronto. I want you to picture a group of about 10 to 12 different kids playing hockey on a Saturday morning. What they would do is they would set up 2 nets in one of those, those streets, and they would play. And along the street, there are street lights that are there. Follow my example, please, very carefully. After their game every Saturday, they're kids, right? They pick up a rock, and they would throw it, and they'd break the lights, and they would take off. They'd run. They're kids. The city of Toronto comes, gets a complaint by the neighbors that the light is out, we can't see anything at night. They come, and what do? They replace the light. Okay? These kids play every 2 weeks. The second week they come, they go, oh, they fixed the light, did they? Pick up the rock, break it again, take off. The city again comes and replaces the lights. The third game, they play the whole game. One kid picks up a rock, throws at the light, breaks the light, takes off. The city comes again and replaces the light. This happens 11 times. The 12th time the city comes, they fix the lights, but they put a cage over the lights. Where now not only can the light still come through the cage, but the light is protected as well. Our 6th Imam says that the Imam in Ghaibat, you can benefit from the Imam in Ghaibat as you would by the sun that's behind the clouds. You can't see the sun, you can feel the warmth and gain the benefits. 11 Imams were shaheed. 11 Imams were either poisoned or killed. The 12th Imam, Allah says, let me put a cover and protect this 12th Imam. The light still comes from the Imam, but he's protected. The city will now remove the protection when they have a guarantee and itminan that these kids will not break the light again. The release of the Imam and the ultimate zuhur of the Imam will come when Allah is given that itminan, that guarantee from you and I, that when He comes, we will protect the Imam of our time. If that guarantee is not there yet, he will continue to be in ghaybat. It's a very simple example. So our duty, our job is to continuously to work towards the arrival of the Imam. Now yes, our kids nowadays are obsessed with the signs of the zuhur. Some have a checklist. That one's done, this one's pending, this is almost done. And they believe that once that checklist is done, the Imam within that next day will arrive. No, we have in our hadith that sometimes all the signs can come true. The Imam may still not come. Or none of the signs may come true, and the Imam still won't come. But if we look at the movement of society today, we can see it's going again towards that dhulumat, that jahiliyyah, that ignorant lifestyle, that complete darkness that was there before the arrival of the Prophet of Allah. And you can debate that if you want. But that's exactly where we're moving towards. Because the Prophet has a very dangerous hadith. He's sitting with companions. He says to his companions, how would it be that your youth are committing sin and your women are also committing sin, and nobody is there to say anything? The companions were shocked. He says, Ya Rasulullah, are you sure that's how it's going to be? He says, yes. He goes, how will it be that your youth will be encouraged to sin and your women will be encouraged to sin and nobody will say a word? They're equally more shocked. Ya Rasulullah, will there come a time like that? He says there'll come a time even worse than that, where what was considered to be virtuous is now vicious. What's considered to be vicious is now virtuous. In this day and age, that's the zamana that we're in right now. What was once considered to be virtuous is now vicious. What was once considered to be vicious is now virtuous. We call it the glamorization of sin. And part of that problem is social media. Part of that problem is this himmah that we have in society. Part of the problem is this confessional that we have, where we have no problem in exposing our life to others. And sometimes it's the fact that we live our life off the path, but we don't have this sharam, this haya, this embarrassment that I don't want others to know the way I live. Instead, what do? Is I put it on social media for the world to watch, and I wait for them to actually comment and react on my lifestyle. They like or they don't like. And this is exactly where we're headed towards. Look at the way religion is portrayed in the entertainment world. Look at the way that some of our prophets are joked about in the entertainment world, in cartoons, in television shows. We have shows where if there's a Christian family, they're the butt of the jokes all throughout the entire episode. We have cartoons out there where they depict God to be this massive man and come in and talk to, let's say, the lead character in that show. And they put him with long hair, na'udhu billah, and a very deep voice. And all that now is norm. If you say anything now, you're extreme. They're not. This is where we're headed. It's a problem that we have. And part of that is the simple acceptance of what's happening today as the norm. And that's what I really want to work on tonight with all of you, is that if insight creates anything, it creates an awareness of oppression. It wakes us up. It doesn't allow us to be indifferent. Right now, there's a silent majority all over the world that's watching this boom happening and are completely quiet. I'm not only talking about ISIS. I'm talking about right now what's happening in Africa, in Nigeria. Are you following what's happening there? When girls are being kidnapped and then sold as slaves and married off to disgusting individuals. This so-called Islamic State right now is doing the exact same thing. They're selling women like they are commodities right now. Exactly what the era of Jahiliyyah used to do in the Prophet's time. They considered women to be part of the Beit al-Mal, the spoils of war. You have your swords, you have your jewels, you have your women. And they would trade women like it was gold. And that's what's happening today. And sometimes the problem is that we are asked to believe in these very, very low, this low level of understanding of oppression and injustice. If we should by now gain anything from the message of Ashura, it is that wherever there is dhulm, we as the Azadaran of Imam Hussein are mawjood there, supporting those who are the oppressed and rising up against the oppressor. That's at least the bare minimum that we should be able to derive from the message of Imam Hussein. What we should not be doing, with all due respect, is this man gave a dhibh azim, a grand sacrifice, such a sacrifice that creatures and creations from heaven would come and be mawjood on the day of Ashura and beg Imam Hussein, can I help you in this cause? Animals would come, the jinnat would come, the angels would come. Every single prophet was there, present on the day of Ashura. They would leave their graves and where they were and come and descend onto earth just so they can be a part of the mission of Imam Hussein. And if we have reduced that mission to 10 days, sometimes 3 days, sometimes 1 day, it's a grave injustice. If we have reduced that to say there's dhulm happening right now against the lovers of Imam Hussein, but we're indifferent, we're quiet, we're silent, we're off to the side, we don't like politics in Islam, we don't like the word siyasat, we run from it. All of that, I'm sorry to say, is not part of Imam Hussein's mission. We have to gain a little bit of ma'rifah. It's not a very popular discussion. It's a responsibility. As my ustad one time told me, you sit on this member, there are 100 people in this audience, let's say, and they spend 3 hours of their time, 1 hour coming and going, and 2 hours in the majlis. That's 3 hours per 100 people. That's 300 hours that will be on my neck on the day of judgment. Allah will ask me that 300 hours worth, what did you give these people? So sometimes, as much as I would love to give you what you want to hear, sometimes my responsibility and my wazifa is to give you what you need to hear. Not just for you, for my own soul, for my own awakening. There's no shortage of dhulm right now in the world. My brothers and my sisters, every single day we are hearing about killings. 1 or 2 or 50, doesn't matter. It could be happening in your own country, stand up. It could be happening in Iraq, stand up. It could be happening in Palestine, stand up. Don't ever let any individual make you feel like because Palestine is not a majority Shia country, that we have no right to go and support that country. Because Syria is majority Alawi, we have no right to support that country. That is all bogus and a very low level. Wherever there was dhulm, the Ahl Bayt were mawjood there. Wherever there was a dhalim, they were right in front of that dhalim. They never bowed their head. Pick up Dua Ahl Thagur, Dua number 27 of Saif Sajadiyah, of Imam Sajjad alayhi salatu wassalam. It is called the Dua of the Frontiers. It's one of the duas that are recommended by the ulama in this day and age to recite during this whole chaos right now of ISIS in Iraq and Syria. What does that dua say? It's a beautiful dua. It's a dua where Imam Sajjad is praying for the success of those who are protecting the borders of the Islamic world. Okay? All of you are with me, inshallah? During Imam Sajjad's time, was an entire Shia regime? Absolutely not. They were who? The Bani Umayyah. They were who? Muslims who were not the Bani Umayyah. They were individuals who were not the Mu'mineen. Imam Sajjad had a handful of Shias back then. Read up the dua, put it on, look for it online. In there, he prays for the victory of the Muslims, and he's very specific to call them Muslims and not mu'mins, which means that yes, there's one portion of our heart that bleeds for Iraq, that prays for Najaf and Karbala and Choli and Lahore and Karachi and all of these where our mu'mineen are. There's one thing where you pray for your family, there's one thing where you pray for your neighbors. But just because you pray for your family doesn't mean the neighbors don't have a haqq on you. They do. They absolutely do. Whether that neighbor is Christian or Jewish or Sunni, it doesn't matter. Our Ahl Sunnah brothers are our brothers, no doubt. And we ask them, we beg them to rise up with us against this fight. Stand beside us in this fight. There is power in numbers. If you and your leaders are able to come out and denounce this entire Wahhabi movement, it makes our job easier and it makes the success a little bit more attainable. But when you have scholars and reporters and the media simply saying that ISIS is going and they're recruiting Palestinians and they are creating this idea of hatred for Shias, that it goes against the cause. Right now, ISIS is not only recruiting from Palestine, from Australia, from the UK, from North America, from Pakistan, from Turkey, from Qatar, from Saudi. All of this is happening. Why focus on Palestine? I don't know. This is against the mission right now. Don't fall for it. Wherever we have dhulm, it's our duty in the name of Hussein ibn Ali to rise up against that dhulm. Be it that dhulm against our family or against our neighbors. It doesn't matter. The Ahlul Bayt did not place a difference between them and discriminate, and neither will we. We won't. And we don't. MashaAllah, the awareness all of you have is incredible. Discussions that my youth have online are incredible. But open up your eyes, guys. Please be insightful. Be weary of individuals who might be attractive on the outside, but might be spewing from the inside. Be very, very careful. Imam Ali describes the dunya as a serpent, a snake, beautiful and smooth on the outside, spewing venom from the inside at you. And that's how the Ahl dunya are as well. Beautiful on the outside, spewing venom from the inside. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. The reality is that we have to find this motivation today through this commemoration to be able to rise up against oppression. And that first starts off here in your own home. And that comes from your community. To my youth out there, I won't see you after Wednesday. And God knows that if I'll ever see you again. I don't know. But the reality is, let me give you some advice, if you don't mind, from this haqir, from your younger brother, from your son. Your salvation in this trying time, your salvation in this non-Islamic society, your insight, your awareness will all happen a little bit quicker if you attach yourself to your community. From experience that I've been through, and I have been, and I am still just like one of you, gone through the entire Western system, went to school, corporate Canada, the whole nine, everything, just like you did. And I'm nothing. If I am 1%, I am 1% because of the fact that my father and my mother and my elders forced the community on me to the point where I fell in love with my community. You guys will get nowhere if you detach yourself from the community. Doesn't matter sometimes how difficult things are in the community. Doesn't matter how much bickering happens in the community. Doesn't matter how much, as you believe, there are groups forming in the community. It doesn't matter. This is your home. This is your family. This is where your salvation is. Just like inside of your home, you have 4 siblings. Every single one of them are completely different individuals. The eldest and the youngest don't get along. The middle one is weird. The only daughter is off track. The eldest one is some shady character. All of them are your brothers. And you fight and you disagree and you argue, but you don't unbrother them at the end of the day. They're your family. And when it comes time for it, when everything is surrounding around your house, you guys come together, put your differences aside, and work towards the protection of your home. Right now, the enemy that we have has come to our front door, has surrounded us on the outside. We need to put our differences aside and come together as one unified unit. And under the banner of the love of Imam Hussein, come together. We have our differences, no doubt. But the ikhtilaf of the zihn does not have to equate into the ikhtilaf of the qalb. You have a difference of opinion up here, leave it up here. You don't need to trickle it down to here, where either you accept my ideology or I hate you. You're not my brother. You're cut from me. No. We welcome a difference of opinion. Let's sit down and discuss it. No problem. At the end of the day, though, you are my brother. You are my elder. You are my father. You are my sister. No doubt about it. Don't let a difference of opinion between groups allow you to dismantle the community. Your salvation are these four walls. No community is perfect. These are volunteers. These are individuals who are giving their time. What I saw in these 10 days was incredible. I mentioned it in one night. The amount of work right now, there are people who are freezing outside, who are parking the cars for those who are coming and sitting on the Farsh Adab Abu Abdullah. It's incredible. Tell me any system in the world that does that. Any system, unpaid, volunteered individuals who are right now completely and absolutely bundled up, bring you in and give you a ticket and bring your car to your door. There are people right now who are packing their nayas for all of you and missing this amazing speech right now. Now, that we have. Let's channel it towards salvation, towards building our homes. And sometimes giving them ample opportunity to leave. But like I said a few nights ago, Imam Hussein's companions were special for many reasons. But one of them was such that while the other Imams and Prophets would invite them to become their companion, Imam Hussein would tell them to leave, and they wouldn't leave. The more he would say, run away from me, the more they would run towards him. It's not like anybody thought for a moment that I was going to be spared tomorrow. It's not like anybody had this yaqeen that everybody else might become shaheed, but I'll be spared. Everybody understood exactly that they're up against animals who will not spare anything. Everyone knew exactly that I'm going to be brutally killed tomorrow, but nobody moved from where they were. And yes, there were moments where they were a little bit surprised. When Janab Qasim approaches Imam Hussein and asks him, am I on that list of the shuhada? Will I give my life for you on the day of Ashura? Imam Hussein's response to him was that not only are you going to be on that list, but a 6-month-old Ali Asghar will also be on that list. Hussein's sacrifice, we read about his contentment, we read about his itminan, we read about the fact that he submitted completely, and we think that this level of calmness had come over our Imam. Like perhaps nothing affected him. We forget that this man was a human being. We forget that he had a beating heart. And every single time that we start to believe that perhaps Imam Hussein was superhuman, that emotions didn't get the best of him, the musibat of Aliyun Akbar comes our way, and we are reminded that Imam Hussein was not only an Imam on the day of Ashura, not only was he a brother on the day of Ashura, Imam Hussein was a father on the day of Ashura. Ayatollah Naini narrates that I was reading the musibat of Abu Abdullah. In my dream, Imam Hussein was standing there, covered from head to toe in arrows. Didn't say a word. He woke up. The next night, after the musibat again, this time he saw Imam Hussein standing in front of him with only 2 arrows inside of him. He says, Maulana, last night you had head to toe in arrows. Tonight you had only 2 arrows. He says, Naini, when my Shias cry for my musibats, it's almost as if they take out an arrow from my body. He says, then Maulana, what about these 2 arrows? He says, these 2 arrows are such that no matter how much my Shias cry for me, those arrows will not leave me. One is the arrow of Abbas, and the other is of Ali Akbar. The one shaheed that almost killed Abu Abdullah was Ali Akbar. The first family member to be granted permission by Abu Abdullah was his own Ali Akbar. He was setting the trend that I'm not going to ask you to sacrifice your children. I will pave the way. I will show you, not only am I going to verbalize, but I will show you in amal that let me sacrifice my own Ali Akbar. This was Ali Akbar, who in Medina, some riwayah tell us that people would come to pay tribute and do ziyarat of Ali Akbar because he had such a resemblance to the Holy Prophet, to the point where the public would come so much they would create a special room where Ali Akbar would sit there and people would come and visit him and they would give du'as to the mother of Ali Akbar. It's Shabi Ashur. You're tired. I'm also exhausted. My voice is not cooperating. I don't have the himmah to recite the entire shahadat. I'll only say a few lines, and that is this: that when Ali Akbar comes to Imam Hussein, they hug and they hug and they cry and they cry to the point where they become behosh. Imam Hussein readies Ali Akbar for war. But first he says to go and say your Khudafizi to Zainab. You know that for every other shaheed, when they came back to the khayma, she didn't come out of the khayma immediately. She came out with a little bit of ta'khir, a little bit of a delay. But Ali Akbar was the only shaheed where the moment that he came to the khayma, she came running out of the khayma, Bibi Zainab did. My mothers in the audience, you have teenage children, you have young Jawan children in your house, and may Allah protect you and keep them under your side and your tarbiyat always. Ask yourself, from day number 1 till now, you've followed him, you've given him love and tarbiyat and nurtured him. You did everything, and now there comes a day where you must sacrifice him. That day is the most difficult day there is. That day is now for Abu Abdullah. Ali Akbar goes towards the khayma. The riwayat say that the khayma opened and closed at least 10 times. That every time Ali Akbar wanted to exit the khayma, another woman would come and pull him back. Somebody would stop him, kiss his forehead, kiss his arm, pull on his abba and say, where are you leaving? You are our beauty. You are the sign of our Rasulullah. Finally Ali Akbar comes out of the khayma, mounts the horse, and begins his mount towards the Maidan of Karbala. The hadith tell us that as Ali Akbar was going towards the Maidan of Karbala, he could hear somebody following him, running behind the horse. He looks behind him, he sees his Baba Hussein running behind the horse. Imam Ali Akbar stops the horse, gets down from the horse. He says, Baba, you gave me ijazat, Baba. You gave me permission for war, Baba. And then that very famous jumla that breaks our heart. Those of you who are Sahib al-Awlad in the audience, you're listening right now. Imam Hussein looks to Ali Akbar and simply says, if only you were Sahib al-Awlad, if only you had a son like I had in you and Ali Akbar, you would know how difficult it is for me to let you go towards the Maidan. If you can, my son, every so often, turn your face back towards me so I can see you, because you were khulqan and khalqan, a resemblance of my grandfather. Every time I wanted to do the ziyat of my grandfather, I would look to you, Ali Akbar. Imam Hussein gets on the horse, enters the Maidan of Karbala, fights like the Bani Hashim fight, but eventually the thirst gets too much for him. He goes back to the khayma. He says, Baba, I just need a drop of water, Baba. A drop of water, Baba. That's all I need, a drop of water. Can you imagine the father's heart? The son comes to him, doesn't ask for anything else, just asks you for a drop of water, and you have to look at him and say, I wish if I had water, I would give you everything I had. Some riwayat say that he told him to suck on the ring that he had. Some riwayat say that he told Ali Akbar to put your tongue inside my tongue. At that moment Ali Akbar says, Baba, I thought my tongue was dry. Your lips are drier than mine. Ali Akbar goes towards the Maidan of Karbala. And as you know, they never fought the Bani Hashim one-on-one. They surrounded them. They would throw arrows at them. They would throw rocks at them. Arrows from the tents would come. Eventually one mal'oon came from behind Ali Akbar, hit him with a spear and broke the handle of the spear inside of his chest. And one arrow came and hit him in the chest. Ali Akbar falls from the horse. Assalamu alayka, Ya Abu Abdullah. He falls from the horse. When Imam Hussein reached Ali Akbar, for every other shaheed, he would put the head of Shahuda inside of his lap and clean the blood and the dirt from his face. With Ali Akbar, he was different. He took Ali Akbar's cheek and put it against his own cheek. And he said, Baba, there's pain in my chest. Baba, there's pain in my chest. Imam Hussein lies down, Ali Akbar, on the plains of Karbala. He sees there's a spear lodged in his chest, but Ali Akbar won't move his hand from his chest. He says, Ali Akbar, Ya Bunayya, please just move your hand from the chest. He sees there's blood flowing everywhere. Imam Hussein grabs the spear from Ali Akbar's chest and begins to try to lift it out of his chest. But every single time, Imam Hussein lifts that spear out of the chest, the body of Ali Akbar would go up and down on the plains of Karbala. It was that fateful moment that Imam Hussein grabs the spear, turns towards Najaf and says, Baba, you were the one, Baba, that ripped the door of Khaybar, that took 40 men to open and close. But Baba, have you ever ripped the barchi out of your Jawan's son chest? Come to Karbala, look at my Ali Akbar, look at your Hussein. He put one knee on the chest of Ali Akbar, one foot on the plains of Karbala. My Maulana grabbed Ali Akbar's spear and with one shout of Ya Ali, ripped the spear. سيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون. إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. We ask you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to accept this qaleel ibadat, inshallah. We ask you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the night of Ashura is upon us. The bare minimum 10 days that we use to commemorate Abu Abdullah is now over. We ask you, Allah, accept our tears, accept our service. We've never done enough for Imam Hussein. Whatever little we could do, we did. We ask you, Allah, please, there are people who are working towards the mission of Imam Hussein. There are youth out there who die for Imam Hussein. We ask you, Allah, keep this flame of Abu Abdullah lit forever inside of our hearts, inshallah. We ask you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, give us that tawfiq, that inspiration to rise up against injustice. We ask you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there's so much injustice, so much bloodshed, so much tyranny. If we are sitting here calmly as lovers of Abu Abdullah, our mu'mineen brothers in Pakistan right now are entering the masjid not knowing if they'll go back home alive or not. But if you look at every masjid, it's completely full from corner to corner. We ask you, Allah, this resolve, this love that we have, we ask you, Allah, to weaken the hands of the enemies of Islam, strengthen the mustazafin all over the world, hasten the reappearance of our Mawla Imam al-Zamana, and allow us to be mansoob with him when he comes, inshallah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.